joins me now from London, and we're glad to have you with us and give us your thoughts. We just had the reaction from South America. Pelé, what did he mean to Europe in terms of seeing a talent like that with had such powerful abilities and such longevity in the game?
Well, to sort of continue what others have been saying, but maybe even sort of take it to another level. I would say that probably Pelé was the second greatest sports person in the history of sport. Muhammad Ali might just pip him, but he's undoubtedly that, and by some distance as well. There's been huge debates about, especially Leo Messi in recent times. But as your previous correspondents have said, nobody else has won 3 World Cups. And by the way, played a massive part in 2 of those 3 World Cups, the standout player at the beginning and at the end of his careers. Jesse Owens, in retrospect, was probably the first great black superstar, but people didn't know that then because we didn't have the power of TV. So Pelé is recognized as the first real black superstar sports person. He was the first rock star of football. And of course, in Pelé, if you've seen the Pelé documentary, for example, he had no life. He could go nowhere. He was a demigod. And when he came over to Europe, everything about him, his charisma, his panache, the name, you've got to be a great man or woman if you're known by a single name as he was. And he came over to Europe in 1958 for the World Cup in Sweden. And, there weren't that many black Brazilians plying any sort of trade in Europe in the late 1950s. He was 17 years old. They knew in Brazil he was good enough to make the World Cup squad. He wasn't even going to be picked for the first team until his colleagues basically staged a mutiny and said, if you don't pick Pelé, we're not playing. So against the coach's own will, they played Pelé. As one of your colleagues said, he scored a hat-trick in the World Cup semi-final, and then 2 goals, one of them an absolute wonder goal in the final. And he was 17 years old. And from that point onwards, he was regarded to be the greatest footballer in the world at that time. And that's when he introduced himself to European football and world football. And from that point onwards, he was considered to be the greatest. And again, has been pointed out, wherever he went, people stopped whatever they were doing. In the case of Nigeria, they stopped the civil war in order to watch this guy play. Don't forget, he played for not one of the big teams in Brazil. He played for lowly Santos, and stuck with them and playing for a lesser team than the great South American teams of Sao Paulo and Rio. And yet he scored over 1,200 goals. Yeah. So there's no doubt about it. He was the GOAT. He is the GOAT. And it's very hard to see anybody ever taking over.
Yeah, and you now understand, you've put in context for us why Santos is so important to him, and he's so important to Santos. His wake will be held there. The football club has already announced that. I want to ask you, though, about, still today, even if people didn't, see Pelé, even if they're in another sport, his ability to transcend not just his sport, but people's lives, whether or not they could accomplish great things despite coming from poverty and despite what is still really blatant racism all over the world. What did he mean to athletes trying to aspire to that level?
Well, as again was pointed out, he used socks as footballs. He had no boots. He was brought up in one of the real slums of southern Sao Paulo. He had nothing except one thing, God-given, if you believe in that, talent to play football. And of course, in Brazil, and one of the great things about football is, some of the greatest things in life don't cost money. Copacabana Beach, where they play football, where they hone their skills so much because of the sand and the unforgiving terrain, the sea, the sun, the nice weather. That's for free, and that's what Pelé had, and that's all that Pelé had. But he had this talent that was way above anybody else in his era. And so, if you have that talent and you have the belief, because behind the talent, he also had a strong determination, which shone through not just at the beginning, but throughout his life, when he had political pressure, he had pressures from so many different strands, and he was just a footballer, and he tried so hard. Don't forget, there was a revolution in Brazil. There was a coup d'état, there was a takeover by the army, and the democracy of Brazil was shattered. And he was called upon to support this faction and that faction, and of course, all he wanted to do was play football. So you know what? When you look at the lack of facilities that he had, when people make comparisons, there's always one of those great pub debates. You know, who was the greatest Formula One driver, the greatest golfer, the greatest boxer? When it comes to football, just imagine what that man could have done with today's technology, today's boots, today's diet and nutrition, today's physical education. Just imagine what that man could have done. But even without all of that, he still achieved what he achieved.
Yeah, so many have remarked that his talent was pure. Ian Stafford for us, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.